In your memoir, When Going Through Hell, Don't Stop, you spoke of your battle with suicidal thoughts and feelings. How did you become suicidal?
Well, I became suicidal because I was clinically depressed. And that's true for most people. You know, suicidal thinking, suicidal feelings do not come out of thin air. They come out of a response to a type of state called depression and despair, and specifically to pain. Suicidal thinking, suicidal feeling is about trying to get out of the pain. And there are three things about the pain of depression that make it particularly insidious. First of all, it is very, very powerful and intense. Now, it's hard to describe it because it's not like a physical pain like stubbing your toe or burning your hand. But here is how the novelist William Styron described it. He said, "I would rather have my arm amputated without anesthesia than to be going through the kind of emotional pain I'm going through now." And this he told his daughter on the eve of his hospitalization. So it's this very hard to describe but overwhelming pain. The second thing is that it is unremitting. It doesn't seem to go away. And if you try to change your circumstances, it follows you. I remember one day in the summer of 1997, I was hiking up to Angel's Rest here in the Columbia Gorge. It was a beautiful sunny day. And even though I was surrounded by the forest and the beautiful sunshine and the trees, all I could think about was when I got to the top, do I want to jump? I mean, I could not enjoy what was around me because I was imprisoned by the darkness within my own mind. The third thing about this depression, this type of pain with depression, is it feels like it will never end. It feels like you're stuck here forever. You're in this like eternal hell. You know, they talk about eternal damnation. You don't have to die to be in hell. You can be right here in the present tense. And so unlike a person who basically like is a prisoner of war and dreams of coming back to his family, or someone who's going in for heart surgery and schedules the time to play golf because he knows he's going to get better and then he can play his golf when he's up to snuff, a person with depression doesn't see a future. Someone once said that depression is a failure of the imagination. So you're stuck in this hell that is going for eternity. Well, in that case, why wouldn't you want to have a way out? It would seem that would be an expression of self-love rather than self-destruction.
When did you realize you were suicidal, and did you make any plans?
Well, you know, I was kind of struggling with my misery for a while, but then one day I created a will, put my affairs in order, and made my brother the executor. That's how I knew I was serious. So what did I think about? You know, if you know someone who is suicidal, one of the first things you say to them is, do you have a plan? So if someone had asked me that question, I would have said, well, yeah, one idea is maybe I'll shoot myself because it's, you know, one of the more efficient ways to do yourself in. But then I remember talking to a counselor in Florida during one of my previous episodes, and he said, you know, Doug, I wouldn't be so sure because I had a client who shot himself right in the head, but it didn't kill him. It just made him a vegetable, and he was on life support the rest of his life. And that didn't seem like a really good option. So, you know, I couldn't really be sure that would finish the job. Then I thought about, well, maybe I should jump off a bridge or something. But then I realized, of course, as the time came closer, that I was afraid of heights. I also said to myself, what if once I get over the rail, I change my mind? And in fact, this is what happened to two survivors of jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge. One person said, as soon as I got over the rail, I realized that everything in my life that I thought was not fixable was in fact fixable. Fortunately, he survived and was able to rebuild his life. The third option I had was to save up a lot of pills and take those. But then I remembered that only 3% of people who try overdosing themselves are successful. And besides, when it really came down to it, I really didn't want to die. I just wanted to get out of pain. And that's what most people who are suicidal struggle with. They're not really trying to destroy themselves. They're just looking for a way out of this unbearable pain.
What thoughts and ideas did you have that prevented you from carrying out the urge?
So I talked about these urges I had, these plans about guns and you know, jumping off bridges and using pills. And these were things that obsessed me day in and day out. But I also had some other thoughts and feelings that would counter those. The first was a healthy fear of death. I mean, we have it hardwired into our being. It's called the survival instinct. And I didn't really know what death held in store for me, even though I had some ideas. And so I think this healthy instinctual fear of dying was one thing that kept me from acting out. The second thing was I do believe in reincarnation. I'm not sure it exists, but I think it probably does. And as a result, in that frame of mind, you know, if you kill yourself, you're just going to have to come back and start where you left off in the next lifetime. It's sort of like dropping out of a class, you take it incomplete, but at some point you have to make up the class in order to graduate. So I realized if I wanted to graduate from the school of life, there were no shortcuts, there were no easy escapes. And the third and probably the most important deterrent to me was the fact that I knew the effects on other people my suicide would cause, because I had been close to people, including my own psychotherapist who had taken her own life. And I saw that the people left behind have a tremendous amount of suffering they're dealing with, guilt, and could I have done more, and anger. And in some ways, people never get over it. So I thought to myself, here I am going through this hell. And if I do something to harm myself, then I'm just going to have other people in my life who are close to me go through hell also. And why do I want to increase the suffering in the world when my suffering is plenty? So it was those three things, the fear of death, a belief that maybe if I did die, I'd have to come back and do it all over again, and the desire not to increase the suffering of the world by hurting the people I love. Those were three reasons that kind of kept me from the abyss, from basically taking that final act.
What kinds of support did you get from other people?
Well, in my book, Healing from Depression, I say the second pillar of healing is reach out for support. And fortunately, I did have support from a lot of people. And from that, I've come up with the saying, it takes a whole village to shepherd someone through a dark night of the soul. I just want to talk about two people right now who really helped me through this suicidal episode. One of them was Mary Morrissey, who is the head minister of the Living Enrichment Center. And when I came to her, she said, I want you to think about this depression not as an abyss, but a transition point. Because in Buddhism, we say that all states turn into their opposites. So pain turns to pleasure, pleasure turns to pain, nothing lasts forever. And, just because you're going through the valley of the shadow of death, you don't have to pitch your tent there. To paraphrase Winston Churchill, she said, when going through hell, don't stop. And that became the title of my memoir. A second person who was really tremendously beneficial to me was a woman named Judy. She was a social worker who was a friend of mine, but she also had been suicidal herself, had gone through some clinical depressions and really understood this from a soul level. And she gave me a very nice metaphor of a scales. And on one side is coping resources and the other side is pain. And she said, you're not really truly wanting to die. It's just that with the scales, the pain is weighing down, is heavier than the coping resources. So in a sense, there's a balancing act. When you have coping resources more than the pain, you feel better and you feel like you continue. But when the pain is greater than the coping resources, that's when you start to think you want to give up. So I always thought of these scales and I said to myself, how can I increasing my coping resources, or how can I decrease my pain? The second thing she said I want to share with you is a parable that really helped me to understand about the lack of permanence in all things in life, especially states of extreme despair. And here's the parable. According to an ancient tale, a Sufi village was attacked and captured by a group of warriors. The king of the victorious tribe told the vanquished that unless they fulfilled his wish, the entire village would be put to death the following morning. The king's wish was to know the secret of what would make him happy when he was sad, and sad when he was happy. The village constructed a large bonfire, and all night long their wise men and wise women strove to answer the riddle. What could make a person happy when they were sad, and sad when they were happy? Finally, sunrise dawned, and the king entered the village. Approaching the wise ones, he asked, "Have you fulfilled my request?" They replied, "Yes." The king was presented with a pouch, and in that pouch was a gold ring. The king was perplexed. "I have no need of gold," he said. "How can this ring make me happy when I am sad and sad when I am happy?" And then he looked at the inscription in the ring, and it said, "This too shall pass." So you see, Judy told me the only thing constant in the universe is change. Nothing lasts forever. I know you feel you're hopeless, but that is a trick that your brain is playing on you. You're not omniscient, you're not God, and you don't really know what the next day is going to bring, and neither do I. So instead of worrying about tomorrow or worrying, am I ever going to get better, just focus on getting through one day at a time, day by day, breath by breath. Fortunately, I had already developed what I called my daily survival plan for living in hell, and as a result of that, I was able to keep my focus on the present moment and kind of just not get too worried about if I was ever going to get out of this. And sure enough, one day, like in the film Groundhog Day, I woke up, and due to a miracle that happened to me, which I describe in one of my other videos, I was able to come out of this deep depression and live again. And looking back, I am so glad I didn't take my own life, because that was when I was 47 years old, and now I'm 64. In the last 17 years, so many good things have happened to me. I've been able to write 3 books on depression. I've been able to run support groups, which have helped hundreds of people. I've been able to parent 2 wonderful godchildren. Everything that has given me meaning and purpose has occurred in the last 17 years since my last depressive episode. So if I had taken my life, it would have been a real tragedy, because the real purpose of life would never have been revealed to me, and I never would have had the ability to live it out. So based on my experience, I have something to say to anybody watching this video who may be depressed, who may feel hopeless, who may feel despairing, and may feel that they want to do something to harm themselves. And this is my message directly to you. If you feel like you are going through hell, don't stop. If you feel like you are at the edge of an abyss, don't jump. Because as long as you are breathing, there is hope. As long as day follows night, there is hope. Just keep setting the intention to heal, reach out for support, and you will find help. Because when you really want to survive, you will draw to yourself the people and the circumstances that will help you in your moment of need. Your prayers will be answered, I promise it. And as they say in AA, don't give up 5 minutes before the miracle. This I can tell you from my own personal experience. It is true, it is correct. Don't give up 5 minutes before the miracle. Help is on the way. Thank you.